Hello, I'm Angeline Ong. Welcome to Beat the Street, the show that gives you all the tradable news and data you need ahead of the Wall Street Open. Coming up, stocks initiate a comeback. A bounce is indicated as investors eye those inflation numbers and, of course, the US funding bill as well. We've also got Amazon on our radar. The FTC's Amazon antitrust lawsuit faces a high bar in court, says the experts. And happy birthday, Google! The search engine turns 25. We'll have Jeremy Naylor with us in just a moment to tell us all about Google's long journey. Now, not long now before Wall Street starts trading, this is how equity markets are looking at the moment. As I mentioned, we're looking at a rebound after the stocks have been slammed due to worries about higher rates. Just showing you the hourly chart as well. As you can see there, it is ticking ever so slightly higher. How about the US tech? Let's have a look at that as well, because we've had some recovery amongst the mega caps as well. I just want to let you know we've just had some breaking news through. These are the durable goods that we've been waiting on, the figure for the period of August. We were expecting negative 0.5%. We actually got plus 0.2%. So a surprise on the upside. And not much of a move on the markets. Let's have a check on the dollar basket, not much move there as well. It's still at the same level that we saw just prior to that number coming out. But I want to show you the volatility index, because this is a key one. If I give you a longer term view on a daily chart, you can see here that we've seen volatility tick back up recently. And all this is down to those concerns about rates being higher for longer in the US, and that's been boosting treasury yields. And also everyone's waiting on the development surrounding a US funding bill. Just want to show you the mega caps. As I mentioned earlier, we've got Tesla, all session stock on the IG platform. That's showing some relief there, some respite for Tesla. Same story for Amazon and also Alphabet, the owner of Google. Just a bit more on that in a second. I just want to update you on one story we're watching for you to do with Amazon. The FTC, the US Federal Commission, the lawsuit against Amazon because of it abusing, they allege, abusing its retail market power to stifle competition, faces hurdles in court. This is according to legal experts. Some of these experts also said that it's going to be tricky for the court to find that Amazon's policies mean that consumers have less to choose from. The lawsuit alleges that Amazon has unfairly given preference to its own products and that the company's policies punish merchants that want to sell products for lower prices on other platforms. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Google is 25 years old. Well, IGTV's Jeremy Naylor is here to give me an insight and us a view of how its share price has developed as well.
Well, shares in a minute. 1998, that is 25 years since it became a business. Think back to 1995. You've got two PhD students, Stanford University, and a research student, Scott Hassan. No one talks about him anymore. He was in on the gig to begin with. They started a search engine development plan called Backrub. And that was the beginning of Google. Now, Google has now developed into something, of course, that we know and love. As those that use Google, those that use Android as well particularly, are heavily dependent on and expose themselves across the board in terms of their personal data to Google. They know where I live, they know where I'm moving, they know what I do, they know the music I consume, they know who I talk to, I ring using the phone lines, they see me through Google Maps. You surrender yourself. And we talk about the fact that we're not having ID cards in this country. That is essentially an ID card. Google is everywhere. It's become a verb. 1995, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they met at Stanford to start their PhDs, and they started this Backrub with Scott Hassan. Scott Hassan, he's gone off. He's done all sorts of other things. He is a multi-millionaire in his own right, but he's done his own thing. The startup, of course, became Google at the back end of the 1990s, and we heard Google for the very first time in terms of what then became the verb for the search engine. And it became the first main search engine that was used by Yahoo. Yahoo was an internet provider, and then that really was the beginning of Google. It launches AdWords in the early 2000s. And this is when the company really started to identify the way that people use the internet. Eric Schmidt's named Google's first chairman and chief executive back in 2001. And then come 2002, we start to hear a little bit more about what's happening with email. Gmail comes about. And those that are lucky enough to get in very early on pretty much got what they want in terms of their name. I was one of those lucky ones, that's another matter. But I was given an early insight from a friend that was working there at the time. And it was amazing to see that you could really pretty much have whatever you wanted. It's now the most used email system in the world. They came through with a public offering back in 2004. This stock was listed at $1.6 billion. And Angie, it's now worth $1.6 trillion. This is a company that up until 2004 was untested in the market. But here we are now. As I said, Google has done an awful lot since then. Some of it was interesting, but Google was an initial first starter, and it's covered a lot of ground which other search engines have now covered, and they've learned a lot from what happened in Google in the early days.
Not bad, for something that started as a thought in a dorm. However, it's had a really controversial journey. I mean, there have been hiccups and headwinds along the way.
Well, I think what's happened is that Google, as I said, being a first mover, you end up with a situation where you try, you test, and you use it as a test bed, as I said, for future companies that come in and having learned what Google has done. I mean, where's the Google car? You know, what happened with Google voice activation? Well, that's become barred. So it has actually learned from all this. It bought Waze. Why did it buy Waze when it had Google Maps? Well, it's introduced Waze into Google Maps. Now, Google Maps has become a really strong mapping, like it or not, because you get a lot of infringement of your personal liberties, I think, in terms of where we are, what we're doing, how we're doing it, what our house looks like, what our gardens look like. But nonetheless, Google Maps has now incorporated Waze. Fitbit, what happened to Fitbit? It's incorporated into Google Fitness. So what Google has done over the years has come through, I think, with some really interesting developments. What it doesn't like, I think this goes back to what we were saying in terms of some of the darker side, it's got fines left, right and centre coming through, European Union particularly, billions of dollars because it's a dominant force. Well, it is a dominant force because we all use it. But at the same time, Google search engines, Chrome especially, is now overlaid in a lot of our phones. And if you use an Android phone, that's the default. You can use other search engines, but you're given this. And what the competition people are wanting to see now is more competition within the market. Let me just quickly show you the share price chart, because this is interesting. This is on the IG platform. It trades all sessions, so it means we do have a trade at the moment on the session. It's up 0.1%. That doesn't really matter. But you can see the shape of where we are. In 2000, it became a $1 trillion company, and since then we have seen it trade above that. And as I said, it's $1.6 trillion now. It came through at 1.6 billion. So if you'd invested $100 in that time, I mean, you can do the maths. You'd be very, very wealthy now, and you'd have ridden this wonderful wave for Google. Where does it go from here? Well, I think technically this channel that we've seen develop here is something I think that we should keep an eye on, and that is the direction of travel. It is coming up against all sort of headwinds in terms of some of the governmental concerns about the way that Google dominates our lives. And I said it is essentially a search engine which gives us what is basically an opportunity to run our lives. And as a result of that, they know where we are, what we do, who we are and everything. But Google, it's never going to end anytime soon. Sergey Brin and Larry Page have essentially left the running of the business, but that doesn't matter. It's got enormous amounts of internal energy. It'll be interesting to see what Google comes up with next.
Enormous amounts of cash too. Thank you very much, Jeremy Naylor there, with this take on a very interesting company celebrating its 25th birthday. Now, from that, let's turn now to another all sessions stock, and I want to show you Meta. Not much of reaction there, but this is also all sessions. We're watching it because recently there was news that it was going to pull out. This is the owner of Facebook, pull out of one of its London offices with a huge break fee in place. But more importantly, it is pulling out without even fully using this office. And what's happened is we've had some top UK landlords reacting, not just to that, but also with downgrades in play as well. Jefferies downgrading stocks including British Land and also Derwent, and Great Portland Estates was another one. This is not on that news per se, but pretty much a cloud overhanging the UK market in terms of office space. And the brokerage is saying that the office market is rather weak and shrinking, and that landlords are losing pricing power. Not just Great Portland Estates is cited by the brokerage, but also British Land, Derwent and Land Securities, and many others too could potentially be involved in this. The sector index is currently down around 1%. Now, just checking in on another stock that we are watching for you, Micron Technologies. It's expected to report fourth quarter earnings later on in the session. Micron Technologies, another all sessions stock on the IG platform. This means you can trade at any point and not have to wait for when the main market opens. Giving you an hourly view there ahead of its earnings, it is currently down just 0.1%, not much really. The fourth quarter earnings will be key because for the past few quarters, the chip maker has gone through very difficult times. Demand has drastically dropped after the pandemic-fueled frenzy. Elevated inventories then put pressure on margins. Sales forecast to fall a fifth quarter in a row by 41%, and Micron seen posting a loss for the past 3 months, the fourth in as many quarters, this time of $1.18. Now, if it returns to profitability, it is unlikely to happen before the second half of the fiscal year. But has Micron turned a corner? Well, let's take a look at some of its rivals and also what its CEO is saying. Micron's CEO called the bottom of the memory chip market. Analysts covering the group seem to agree. Deutsche Bank upgraded the stock to buy last week as DRAM prices have started to improve, and thinks that the expansion of AI will benefit Micron. Last July, Nvidia announced that it was using, just bring out the chart here for you, that it was using Micron's high bandwidth memory chips in its data center products. Now, even though Micron shares are far from their early 2022 high, the stock has been rising since the start of this year. And Costco is another one that we're watching for you because its earnings were ones that we focused on earlier in the session. Costco beating the street, fourth quarter total sales rising 9.5% as its consumers went after cheaper products, and also the affordable gas that you can get at Costco, candy, funnily enough, and fresh foods also meant that it offset the weakness in big ticket discretionary items. Traffic also continues to do well. This is according to its CFO, and better sourcing and tighter inventory controls also drove its gross margin. Costco posted a per share profit of $4.86. That was well above expectations of $4.79, I believe. So overall, a really good quarter report from Costco, despite the inflation, despite the headwinds, and despite a lot of the concerns surrounding retail of late. And last but not least, also checking in on Microsoft, because OpenAI, the artificial intelligence startup behind ChatGPT, is apparently talking to investors about a possible sale of existing shares at a much higher valuation from a few months ago. This is according to two sources close to the matter. Now, the proposed deal could value Microsoft-backed OpenAI at between $80 to $90 billion. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. For those of you not yet familiar with ChatGPT, this is the chatbot that can generate human-like responses, allegedly, based on user prompts. And this has come at a time when the buzz and the excitement around AI is erupting all across Silicon Valley. So we'll get the latest on that as it breaks. Before we go, let's have a last look to see how Wall Street is trading ahead of the open. And it is looking like a cautiously higher start, even though investors are still waiting on those inflation figures before making any big bets. So for more market-moving news, do join us on Twitter at IGCom and at Angeline Ong. But for now, that's it for this edition of Beat the Street, the show that follows all the trading action, helping you position yourself ahead of the open. This is IGTV.